in terms of policy position, you've had the PS, we have the CEO of Social Health Authority. We recognize clinical officers as clinical officers. You know, they will be registered. You know, you can't tell the churches to be registered and an imam. You know, imams will be registered by NCCK. Clinical officers will be registered by the Clinical Officers Council. Doctors are registered by the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Council, as per the KMPDC Act. Nurses by the Nursing Council of Kenya are the ones that register them. So it's just step by step. Social Health Authority shall empanel and contract facilities and practitioners pursuant to Section 33(2) as read with Section 31(3) of the Social Health Insurance Act and regulations, meaning that clinical officers will be directly empaneled through the registered regulatory body and not through any other regulatory body. The authority shall henceforth pay SHA benefits to the said licensed facilities and practitioners by the Clinical Officers Council. The Clinical Officers Council is the body that registers clinical officers and regulates them. Earlier, the position had been that clinical officers and all other cadres go through the KMPDC, which is the Medical Practitioners and Dentists Council. But we have agreed that every cadre will go through the regulatory body, and that was the biggest issue. In view of the aforementioned resolutions, we call upon the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers to call off the ongoing strike to ensure service delivery in county facilities and in all facilities do not grind to a halt. We had a meeting last week where we discussed the major issues. We have set a technical committee between the COG and the clinical officers, the council, and we gave them 21 days to actually go over, you know, the issues and to have a draft CBA that then will be cascaded to the counties, so that we can adopt them as governors and as you know, different employers across the country. We had agreed on the Social Health Authority, but there was a little miscommunication. Then they thought that we've moved back on our word, and that's why today, even this statement, I am signing in front of you, and the PS is going to sign as well in front of you, so that you can show our clinical officers that we care and that we mean our word.
Let's start the meeting. They are coming on. I agree with you. The staff made commitments. If there was to be any change, it would have been courteous to ask us for our meeting and to address them. So we just do a quick meeting, 30 minutes. Yeah, promise to the meeting. Oh, but you're your guy. What's his name? And you made commitments.
And I asked him whether he has the powers. He said, no, Nicola authorities.
See, it's the law. They're not going to break me.
He said it is the law. What?
The issue of what you call strike. It is for strike, but it's a decision that does this right? They came in number union. I think this was about the way you say
Let's call the meeting to order. Governor Bomet. We want to have a very quick meeting.
Kuna podium. Kuna light. Ndio ile Atakuwa tu hapo chini. Atasimama.
Pia ni education. No, tumalize yetu tu. Education didn't have any labor issues.
Labor issues in the future.
Yeah, but they were not there today.
Of course.
Yeah.
Wanna PS up?
Where is Kaiga?
Keep this off and use your mics, yeah? Yeah. Nashikanisha hizi vitu najua. So they pick.
Education.
Let's
We finish with health first. Well,
please let's settle. Let's settle.
Sorry?
let us settle.
Okay.
Thank you, members of the Fourth Estate. As read out the resolutions of our consultative meeting between the Ministry of Health and the Council.
Yes, so thank you, Governor Sakaja, my counterpart.
The clinic officers have just led a press conference and they said some of these negotiations are just on paper. Once it's done, they are prepared. How do you assure them that this is what we have said and we keep our word?
From the statement that was read today by...
For the first time, clinical officers will have a collective bargaining agreement. They've never had it. And so we tell them it is you make progress, you make a step, you bank it. You make the next step, you keep that, what you've attained, and you move to the next one. So I don't think it is reactive in any way. What spurred them to go back on what we'd agreed was the communication that they had when they were being told to still go through KMPDC.
It is possible for clinical officers to be given the pre-authorization and also to be empaneled and contracted to be able to offer services. For SHA to succeed, and also the universal health coverage in Kenya, we must cover all facilities in the country. It is common knowledge that levels 2s and 3s, where the majority of Kenyans normally start their journey to healing, is usually manned by clinical officers and nurses. And therefore, to leave clinical officers from the list or of authorized personnel to be able to pre-authorize the activities or rather the treatment that should be done to the patients, it is to mean that we start treatment at level 4. And that is why we are happy that SHA and the ministry are here, and we have agreed in principle, both Council of Governors, who represents over 95% of facilities in Kenya, that we will enable these clinical officers to be able to access the services directly. For that reason, therefore, there is no reason why clinical officers cannot go back to work. Last week, actually, we met on 14th. We never had any media brief, but we had a very comprehensive meeting with the KUKO. And as far as we were concerned, there was not going to be any strike until they misunderstood what was communicated by the SHA CEO, which they never got and never asked questions on what exactly does it mean. Does it negate what we discussed that day? So I would say this trigger for the strike today was simply because of wrong perception or misunderstanding over communication. There will be a meeting this afternoon between the Clinical Officers Council, which is a body equivalent to KMPDC, and we start the journey on how we can be able to empanel the clinical officers. It's not a plug and play. It will be an effort in futility to tell them they will start treating or being given rights authorization today when the systems are being put in place. That is why we are saying it may take maybe a few days. It is not necessarily 2 weeks. It could be a week. But once this process kicks off, which is this afternoon, then there's no reason why they shouldn't go back to work. because what they have asked for is already in the pipeline, and they are involved in implementation to be able to achieve what they wanted. And therefore, the fact that it's starting today in the afternoon and they will be involved is already an evidence that what we have promised them is already being done. Because when you tell clinical officers you cannot pre-authorize them, or you don't give them authority to be able to treat and be paid, they had to use the registration of KMPDC, who are doctors, and to me that is fraud. Because if a clinical officer is using a license of a doctor, and then it's not the doctors who are treating, then it means that that doctor is the one who is responsible for anything that will happen. And that is why it is important to give them the rights directly, because they are the ones who are offering those specialized services in the level 2s, the level 3s, and sometimes level 4, because there is no level of facility in Kenya that you cannot find a clinical officer. And that is to mean everyone to carry their own cross. There is no doctor who should pre-authorize for a clinical officer. Let them be responsible for the actions that they do. And that will streamline the services so that everybody can be responsible. We do not want to go back to what we had in NHIF, where facilities had claims using other people's licenses because we didn't have a system that was working. I'm happy that the digital health authority is here, and they have promised that we'll be able to provide a network or a system that is going to be connected to all clinic officers who will be given the empanelment, so that we have one communication through the digital highway that is visible to everyone who is in the system, so that we do not have any gray areas and hidden corners.
We want to confirm that indeed these resolutions will be implemented with immediate effect. And starting this afternoon, we are going to call on the Council of Clinical Officers to report to the Ministry of Headquarters through their chief officer, so that we can start engaging with the DHA. I think there has been a miscommunication between us and them. The resolutions that were reached on the 14th reached the ministry today morning. We had already started implementing those resolutions, but we were notified that the clinical officers are on strike, and that's why we had to come back here so that we agree, and we were affirming that this will be implemented.